Welcome again, everyone, to this month's Designation Discourse conversation. Let's see, it is October, it's open discussion. So yes, all questions about candidacy and earning a designation are open and welcome. So my name is Jaron Peranto, Director of Credentialing here at IAAO. And not ready for that slide yet. There we go. Just go real fast. Give you a short rundown of how we're going to proceed today, and then let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we will jump in and get started. Real quick, as advertised, this is very informal. There's no pretense, no real presentation. There is a slideshow you've probably noticed that is just going to run in the background. We don't really refer to it, but if you have questions about what's presented there as we go through, feel free to ask. It just kind of goes through and addresses some of the frequently asked questions we get throughout the day and also throughout these presentations as well. So feel free to ask your questions. That's what we're here for. If you feel like unmuting yourself and asking live and joining the conversation, please do that. If you're more comfortable just adding your question to the chat, you can do that as well. And I will monitor that chat and then either direct those to our panelists to answer, or if it's more nuts and bolts, I'll probably just answer it myself to save them the chore from doing so. Let's see, what else do we have? Awkward silence will occur. So this is provided as a forum for you to think and ask your questions. So we're not going to fill the time of just talking. So we'll have a little bit of a silence, let you guys collect your thoughts and think of your questions and pose those. We will be here for we'll be up here for up to an hour. If things just kind of wind down naturally before that, then we'll close early. So we'll at least keep it to an hour, if not shorter. And if you don't have questions, just like to learn from others, that's kind of how I operate. You're welcome as well. So don't just hang tight. We'll see if somebody gets to your question, or maybe it's all new to you and you don't know what to ask. This is a good forum for that as well, because you'll learn from these slides, but also from those that ask questions as we go through. All right, with that, I will say that one of our panelists, Tina Stone, is teaching a course in North Carolina this week, and she messaged me a little bit ago and said they decided to work through lunch. So she's not going to be able to join us today, but I think I did see our three other panelists on screen there. So if we could start with Tracy, if you want to introduce yourself, and we'll just go through the list of our three panelists.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tracy Drake. You can see I've got multiple designations. I've been in the mass appraisal business about 30 years. I'm an elected appraiser in Florida. I've served on the professional development committee in some form or fashion, probably for about a decade, and also served on the education committee. I'm the chair of the Professional Designation Committee of the Florida chapter of IAAO, so I like to say fairly involved. So hopefully I've got some answers for you folks, and I hope you have some good questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy. David?
Hey, Jaron. Hi, this is David Sanford. I'm with the Deputy Assessor for Chesapeake, Virginia, going on 38 years as an IAAO member. Received my designation many, many years ago, but some things don't change. So hopefully I can still answer some questions for you, but I'm happy to be here and be of whatever help I can provide. Thank you, Jaron.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And Malcolm.
Okay, my name's Malcolm Stadig. I'm in Ottawa, Canada. 30 years into the profession. Presently, I do real property consulting for largely property tax purposes for both assessment agencies and taxpayers. And prior to that, I was an assessor in Ontario, which is the second largest assessment jurisdiction in the world, with almost 5 million parcels for almost 25 years thereabouts. And got my CAE designation, well, quite a while ago now. And it was a rewarding experience that opened up a lot of opportunities. So certainly happy to help.
Very good. Thank you, Malcolm. All right, with that, let's see, make sure I got the chat open so I can see those questions. All right, and if you're just joining us, then yeah, we're ready to jump into your questions. So once again, yeah, if you feel comfortable unmuting yourself and asking your question, please do so. Or if you want to throw it into the chat, then I'll read it out and we'll get your questions answered. Well, I think this is the first. Nobody's broken silence yet. This is that awkward silence we're talking about. Once again, do have the chat open, so enter your questions there, or if you want to unmute yourself, jump right in. All right, this might be our shortest one yet then. So panelists, do you want to share anything, any thoughts you're having about the benefits of holding your designations and why folks might be interested in pursuing one?
Well, I can go first. I
Thank you,
think.
Malcolm.
Sure thing. If my experience is any indication, the more you invest in your own professional development, the better you'll understand the subject matter. The better you understand the subject matter, the more comfortable you are in a variety of situations when you're presented with challenges, perhaps in an appeal setting. You'll be in a better position to discern whether or not what you're being told has any merit, and you'll be in a position to be more self-sufficient, which is really rewarding, and then eventually in a position to help others, which from my perspective is the best part of your career is you gather all this information, which certainly helps yourself, but eventually you can pass it on to others. So investing in yourself has a lot of positive outcomes.
Great, thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah,
David or
Jen,
Tracy?
this is David. I'll add to what Malcolm has said, and your slide there is perfect. And I think any of us that have achieved the designations would agree that as Malcolm mentioned, it certainly attests to your competence and various ways that you've achieved a designation. It does follow you. I have seen it both personally and with colleagues that it has offered promotions and financial compensation. And it's also just really a personal achievement that you should be very proud of, if nothing else. But I can tell you, I don't see anybody that's gotten a designation that has not reaped rewards, both financially, career advancements, and otherwise beyond just the sense of personal achievement. So I think that kind of goes with anybody doing it. It's certainly a worthwhile endeavor if you intend to stay in this profession. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, David. Then I'm gonna cut you off. You have something to say, Tracy, but do you have a question that came in? Go ahead. All right. So Victoria is asking that she plans to get both the CAE and the AAS. Does the order of designations benefit me in any way? So I'm assuming that's be the order they're earned in. Yep. Okay.
I'll start since I have both. They're both hard. And not to scare you off, like I just recently proctored the case study for 8 individuals for the AAS. And without fail, every one of them after the test spoke to me just about how difficult the test was and how maybe unprepared they felt. So short answer, but I've got a longer answer. Short answer is I would encourage somebody maybe to pursue the AAS first, because the CAE is almost next level difficult and the requirements are going to be a little different. The AAS is maybe a little less specific about the designation and what you're asked to demonstrate. I mean, like you can satisfy the case study and a master exam, so you can test your way through the AAS. Whereas when you get to the RES or the CAE, you're going to have to demonstrate it, and it's probably going to be a little more time consuming than the AAS would. But I think if you're going to dip your toes in the water, then I think the AAS is probably the easy is not the best way to say this, because none of them are going to be easy. But that's part of the good part, that when this is difficult and you finish it and you look back and it is, as David said, so it's a tremendous personal accomplishment, but it's going to be tough. So if anybody's like, oh, this is easy, because what they're going to, and not to elaborate too much, but this is beyond, I think the confusion or the people underestimate these tests because they're used to taking the week-long course and they get to the test at the end of course 1, course 2. And it's impossible, in my opinion, to really understand the material when you've only been exposed to it for 4 days for those coursework tests. You get to the case study, and this is truly, do you understand it to the degree that you can apply it? And that's really where these designations test you to that level. But that being said, and I'll finish on this, the workshops, the case study workshops for the exams are a tremendous benefit.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Malcolm or David, anything to add?
Very little to add, although my understanding, and I only have one of the credentials that you're pursuing, Victoria, is that the CAE is the kind of the higher echelon of the credentials, if that's the right way to say it. And some of the content that you'll be tested on in pursuing the CAE will take into consideration what you will have learned in realizing the AAS, in which case the sequencing, consistent with what Tracy is saying, is pursue the AAS first and then move on to the CAE, because some of what you learned in the pursuit of the first will help in getting the second.
Very good. All right, let us know if you have any follow-up, Victoria, or if others have questions. Feel free to unmute or go ahead and type them into the chat.
Hi, this is Ashley DiBiase. I'm from Chesterfield County, Virginia, and I'm looking at getting the AAS designation. And I was seeing that you can do the case study exam, a research project, or an evaluation of the jurisdiction's assessment practices. And I'm wondering if you have a recommendation on which one to pursue, or what you guys did to get yours.
Jaren can help me with this answer, but I would definitely 100% advise you or encourage you to do the case study exam. Like I just said, I was chair of designation, I was chair of education, and my recollection of that is when they developed the workshop, the case study workshop, it's basically developed from the tests. They're not giving you the answers. I don't want to mislead you, but that workshop, once again, is a tremendous benefit. And most of the people that I speak to or advise, they all come back to me and say, I don't know if I would have passed this without the workshop. So that would be my first answer. The second part is where Jaren can help. I've been in this business a long time. I don't know of anybody who's ever chosen another option besides the case study. So if that kind of answers the question. Jaren, do you know of anybody that's evaluated or the question is who's going to grade it, but that's a whole nother issue. But do you know of anybody that's done one of the options?
So I started with IAAO in May of 2015, and there was an evaluation of a jurisdiction on my desk that just came back from the grader. I have not seen one since. It is a lot of work to do on your own. It's using the same source as offices use to earn their CEAA, which is the evaluation of a jurisdiction's practices. And those offices have teams of people working months to make that submission. As an AAS candidate, you'll be doing that on your own, and then also picking 3 areas to identify as areas for improvement and draft I think, recommendations for how you'd make those improvements in the office that you evaluated. So it is very lengthy, very time consuming. I think that's probably why I've only seen one in 10 years. The research project, I have seen none. I think that was developed as an option for folks that are more in academia or used to publishing research papers and have some to submit or working on one to submit. And I've not had to connect anybody to advise with that or seen one come through, so it's harder to speak to that. But I do know it has to be at a level where a paper from it can be presented at the annual conference, and also the paper itself or the research itself needs to be able published in our assessment journal or a similar journal. So it needs to be kind of that tier of research and writing. So I think most people, when they see the work involved there as well, gravitate back to that case study exam because of the resources there and just not say the ease of getting through it, but more just as far as the timeline goes. They're not going to spend a year or so dived into a project like that on their spare time. They're going to spend a couple months preparing for the exam and sitting and taking that exam.
Okay. Thank you both for that answer. I have taken the case study workshop, but it's been a while, so I might want to take it again and then really devote the time to studying, so that I don't have a big gap between taking the workshop and the exam. But I appreciate that feedback.
Jaren, would you speak really quick on the rules on taking the case study? How many attempts do you get?
Yes. So on the case study exam, If you're not successful with the your first sitting for that exam, you do get to retake that exam 30 days or later from when you first sat for the exam. So you get an automatic retake in there. And then we do have a handful of candidates who unfortunately aren't successful with that retake exam. And with that, so every time a candidate is not successful, we'll take the topics of the questions that the candidate missed and put those on a study sheet. So if you don't pass the examination the first try or even that second time, you'll get a list of topics to study where you can brush up and gain some extra points when you go back and see the exam again. And of course, when you see the exam, it's different versions every time, but similar topics, weighted exam that you'll see this over time. But it should help you give you areas where you can study, brush up, and get to where you can get over that hump and show the competence needed to pass that examination. If you don't pass that second time, then there is a 180-day cooling off waiting period to kind of give yourself a chance to reset, deep dive back into that material, those study points, and then come at the exam again for a third and final time. And I think with the AAS, I have not seen anyone go on to earn the AAS that hasn't been successful after, well, we've had a handful that have gone through and done a third exam, but none have needed to go beyond that. The rules do state that because there are other options available, those two time-consuming projects we talked about, there are 3 attempts and that's it. So if you weren't successful after that third attempt, then you'd be instructed to choose one of the other projects to earn the AAS. And that would be that evaluation of a jurisdiction's practices or that research paper or research project, let's put it that way. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. All right, got a question also in chat here from James. I have all the coursework for the AAS or RAS. Any advice for someone that took most courses decades ago? I got the thing in the way here. I have my coursework books, but they are quite old. All right. I have an answer, but panelists, anything before I go in?
I'll jump in. I would say coursework doesn't necessarily determine success when you took them. Once again, my advice, I would pursue the AAS first. And I would take the workshop, the case study workshop, because in my opinion, they do a great job of preparing you for the case study. Both do the RAS case study or the AAS. So the workshop, I would think, because the coursework is a little dated, I would definitely encourage the workshop.
Very good, thank you. And just as throughout the program, we do usually recommend to candidates, if it's been 5 years or more, that you find a way to get your hands on the current course materials. And our first recommendation is usually to beg, borrow, steal from a colleague. So see if somebody else has taken it more recent than you have and borrow their course, their student reference manual from those courses to study from. If not, you can buy the current student reference manual from our website out of the store. I think they're usually around $100 for IWO members per course. So if you really want to get the latest course material and study from that, then there is an option to do that there as well. So, and let us know if you have a follow-up to that, James.
No, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Surely this has sparked something. More thoughts, more questions?
While we're waiting, the reason that I say and I push the AAS first, as opposed to the CA or the RES, is because the CA and the RES are both fairly specific. Like when you get into the testing, it's more specific, whereas the AES is more of a general, well-rounded exam. Whereas if you get into the RES, it's going to ask you specifically appraisal related questions. And if you haven't brushed up on that material, that one could be difficult. And it's kind of like writing an appraisal, for the case study for the RAS is, and what I mean there is, if you get the land value wrong, then that error compounds throughout the test because other questions are going to rely on that one answer. So that's why I say the RS and the CAE are a bit more difficult, only because if you don't know it, it's difficult to get through those exams.
Great, thank you. All right, great questions so far. What else do we have?
About designation advisors, finding one. I'm in Rhode Island, and I don't think we have any. No, I know we don't have any CAEs.
Good question. So for those that are unfamiliar, so everybody that applies for candidacy, you do have access to a professional designation advisor. These are designees who volunteer their time to share their experience in earning a designation to help you earn yours. And right now we're between platforms. We updated software last year. Well, earlier this year. Get my years mixed up already. It's not 2026 yet. It feels like it, but working through that, and we haven't quite found what we want to replace it with yet. But at this time, we do have a list of advisors from that platform, and we share that to you in a list form. And this is essentially what we did before: is that anybody that holds a designation that you're seeking, you can contact. They expect contact from candidates and ask if they would serve as an advisor for you. We don't really have them identified by geographical location anymore. We used to assign them by state and whatnot, and that's kind of the old days. Now with the ability for folks to meet virtually and be more in a format like this and be able to talk to each other, we've more thought it is important for folks to find people they're comfortable with, but also people that have gone down the same path they have. So of course, if you're going for the CAE, all of them have written a demo report. It'd just be a matter of, did they write on a residential property or a commercial property? And you want to find an advisor who's done the same as the path you're seeking. So as a candidate, you just contact me and let me know you want to be connected with or you want to connect with a PDA, and we'll send you the list. And also, if you don't quite know where to start there and want some recommendations, I have some of that too. I can kind of point you in the right direction to get you started.
Good. I mistakenly thought the advisor had to be a CAE, but if it's just someone that has the same designation you're seeking, then that's probably going to be a little easier. So it'd probably be AAS.
Yes, that opens it up too. So yeah, so you can, and for an AAS, either a CAE or an AAS could advise you pretty well, I would think.
Okay.
And then also that's kind of the more official track. And like I said, you're Rhode Island, so you might not have those around you. But if you do know of somebody that you've met through taking classes or going to conferences that has an AAS and you feel comfortable with them, you can ask them if they want to share their expertise with you as they went through the program. They don't have to be an official PDA through us. If there's somebody you know and are comfortable with and they want to do it, then we support that as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, new question in the chat. Megan asks, says we have 5 years to complete the designation. I also have already taken some of these courses. Does the 5 years start when you apply? And if so, do you have to retake those courses? Yes, the 5 years starts when you apply. And no, you don't have to retake the courses. So at this time, course credit does not expire. So you can take it at any point in the past and you can still apply that towards earning a designation. And then, yes, that clock does start once you're accepted as a candidate. So usually once you send in your application and pay the application fee, usually within about a week or so, we process everything and get your candidacy set up, and we'll send you an email to notify you that you are a candidate, and that is the date that your 5 years starts. I think the 5 years is set just knowing that everybody is in different situations. Either you're a smaller office or a bigger office, just to have plenty of time, but also makes sure that folks, if you are starting from square one and starting from the beginning and just starting to take courses, that should give you ample time to get through the requirements and earn the designation. So I find that most people going for a specialist designation, if they've already had some courses, they can usually earn the designation within a year or two, usually between a year, 18 months, 2 years, somewhere in there. CAEs on the longer end of that, into kind of the 3 years, depending on where they are. Um, some people apply when they have all their courses finished, and then within a matter of months, they have their designation. They go that route. Usually those folks are in office that have quite a few designees, so they kind of have a built-in support system. So they kind of have been unofficially advised along the way and are ready to just kind of jump in and finish up the program. So you have some options there, but yeah, you do have that 5 years, then that clock won't start on you until you apply for candidacy and are accepted. All right, still monitoring the chat, but also if you want to unmute and ask a question, feel free to do so. All right, James got a question in there. I'm already past retirement age. What is the oldest age that someone has earned a designation? Ooh, I need to think. Panelists, if anything to add? Let me think for a moment. I don't know directly. I do know that we have had some folks that are same situation as you. In fact, some that thought they were retired and were called back in, and they were working to earn the designation before they retired, didn't do so, found themselves, they came back in and were interested in the designation again, as they look like they're going to be there for a couple more years again. So, and they went on to earn the designation. So you're not alone in that, Drew. So, yeah, it's not uncommon. So we do have a handful of candidates that have come through, and that do so, or um, some that also, I think, probably a smaller amount that have kind of had it as a goal quite a long time, and almost that retirement coming up has almost inspired them to earn that designation before they retire. So it's almost like getting across that finish line before they retire, or they really plan on using the designation or not, just as kind of a way to kind of cap off their career. So I've seen that as well.
Thanks.
Sure. All right. I know we've been kind of a quiet group today, but we are kind of winding down. Been in through about 30 minutes, lower 30 minutes now. We'll of course stay on as long as there are questions, but also don't want to hold you hostage if we've also exhausted all your questions. So once again, feel free to unmute or go ahead and put your question in the chat. And while you're thinking of your questions, I'll have our panelists think about any parting thoughts they want to leave. Any parting words of wisdom, advice that we didn't get to today.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's advice or wisdom, but what I will say is no one has to go through this alone. There are sessions just like this, and Jaren can certainly introduce anyone wishing to pursue accreditations with people to speak to give them their insight. I mean, there are three of us on the call, but there's certainly more than three of us that can offer assistance. And you'll find that many people want to help you, and generally people want you to be successful. So don't be shy in asking. There's plenty of help for you. And once you realize your goal, you'll be glad you did it. You're certainly not going to regret it. And I think you'll enjoy it in the process too, because it's fun. It's because you're learning something new and you're investing in yourself, and it's going to lead to a positive outcome.
Thank you, Malcolm. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Anyone live? Anyone brave enough to unmute? All right, David or Tracy?
No, I'll just say, congratulations to everybody for even thinking about this. It's a big deal. I know designations kind of changed my career. It just seemed like I didn't know much about it. I didn't know what I needed to do. There was a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers. And once I kind of kicked it in gear, it just kind of happened. I just stuck to it. There were some bumps along the way. There were some delays along the way, but I didn't let that kind of define the process. And once I was finished, once again, we've already said this, but just what an accomplishment. I mean, in this profession, it's probably arguably the biggest accomplishment that you're going to, personal accomplishment, professional accomplishment that you're going to achieve. And you should be proud of that. But once again, congratulations for just thinking about the process. But when you're finished, it will change you, small, big, we don't know, but it's going to change your career and just your professional development. I think that's what's important. So I encourage everybody to just take that next step and let's get moving forward.
Great, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, I'll just echo Malcolm and Tracy that it's well worth the effort, and there's definitely help along the way. But you won't regret it. There's plenty of outreach you can do. That as Malcolm said, you got three of us here on the call, but there's many more of us on professional development and professional designation advisors and current or recent designees that would all be glad to help you, and you certainly won't regret it.
Very much so. All right, well, thank you, panelists. Appreciate that. And we don't have to wrap up. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. Did anybody think of a question in the meantime? Anyone? All right. Well, I am seeing none. So let's see. So with that, I think we will wrap up for the day. Thank you all very much for joining us today. We do appreciate it. Thank you to our panelists for lending your time and expertise to prospective candidates. This doesn't have to be the end, as has been alluded to, and I will say that once you leave here and you review more information, talk to more people, I'm sure you have more questions. That's why we're here. My email address, names all over the website, as well as our general designations inbox, designations@iwao.org. So feel free to email, and if I can't answer the question, I have a wealth of resources such as these three panelists that I can connect you to, or get an answer from them and relay that back to you. So don't let this be the end. Give us some thought, see what questions you have, and let us know. We'll happy to help guide you along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy your day.